What they're doing is what they always do, which is just turning up the propaganda hose to full blast and just trying to, knock elderly Fox viewers off their feet and make them submit.
Fox News was just brutally exposed and humiliated by a public confession from the man who used to be its biggest star, Tucker Carlson, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, before I play this clip of Tucker Carlson just finally going public with the truth about Fox News, and indeed this part is the truth, I do also want to point out that Tucker and Donald Trump have been beefing, even though they are and have been close allies for some time. It seems they're finally deviating on foreign policy. So Trump slaps back, as Mediaite reports, at Tucker Carlson for suggesting Trump has betrayed America first for Israel. I'm the one who decides that. Donald Trump hit back at MAGA media star Tucker Carlson on the suggestion that Trump is abandoning America First principles by supporting Israel's military strikes on Iran. In an interview with writer Michael Schreier of The Atlantic, published on his 79th birthday, Trump said that he's, quote, the one that developed America First, and therefore he is, quote, the one that decides what it means, not Carlson. Carlson criticized Trump in a newsletter, writing, quote, while the American military may not be physically or have physically perpetrated the assault, years of funding and sending weapons to Israel, which Donald Trump just bragged about on Truth Social, undeniably place the U.S. at the center of last night's events. The former Fox News host added, quote, politicians purporting to be America First can't now credibly turn and say they had nothing to do with it. But of course, Donald Trump is an inveterate liar, which Tucker Carlson knew, and Tucker Carlson's also an inveterate liar, so this beef is rather interesting. But the topic of this video really isn't even the Tucker-Trump beef, because in some ways this is spicier. Tucker Carlson, as you know, used to be the biggest star at Fox News, particularly in the post-Bill O'Reilly era, okay? I mean, he was their heaviest hitter by far until he left the company or was fired. I can't quite remember. In the aftermath of the Dominion voting systems settlement, where Fox paid $787 million to settle with Dominion voting systems. We'll talk about that in a second. Well, in this clip from an interview with Steve Bannon, another top MAGA Trump supporter, Tucker Carlson just takes the glove off and says what he really thinks about Fox News, which in this very specific case just so happens to be the truth.
Well, Levin's the funniest because he's terrible on TV. And again, I never had any problems with him at Fox. He kind of controls Hannity in this weird way. I never understood what that was about. I never really cared to learn. Sean was great to me, always nice, and so was Levin. So I just kind of stayed away. But they didn't want to put him on TV because he's like screechy and he's just not a calming presence. Not coming on TV! Like, oh my, unless you're literally floating in and out of consciousness and the attendant has taken the remote to go have a cigarette, you're gonna flip the channel when Michael Levin gets on TV. It's like listening to your ex-wife scream about alimony payments. It's like not appealing. So they wouldn't put him on TV. And then, Sean pushed and they gave him some kind of weekend show that nobody watched. Now I don't have a TV, but someone was just who owns a TV was just telling me that he's like all over prime time. So what is that? That's not by popular acclaim. That's not like their viewer surveys. Like, we need a lot more Mark Levin. Less Jesse Waters, more Mark Levin. Mark Levin! What they're doing is what they always do, which is just turning up the propaganda hose to full blast and just trying to, knock elderly Fox viewers off their feet and make them submit to a new war.
There you have it. Tucker Carlson, of all people, Fox News' former biggest star, just admitted that Fox News is a propaganda outlet that merely exists to knock elderly Fox viewers off their feet and regurgitate MAGA talking points to submit to whoever happens to be the leader at the time. That is a stunning thing to say about Fox, which I also agree that that's true. But again, let's take a look at this. Tucker Carlson nukes Fox News and Mark Levin in fiery Bannon interview. Tucker Carlson dropped a scathing attack on Fox News, his former employer, while discussing the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran with Steve Bannon on Monday. In recent days, Carlson has accused Fox News personalities like Mark Levin and Sean Hannity of cheerleading for the U.S. to enter the war to stop Israel against Iran, or to help Israel against Iran, excuse me. Quote, well, Levine's the funniest because he's terrible on TV. And again, it goes into the clip that you saw there. Levine and Carlson have publicly feuded over foreign policy, trading jabs and name-calling online. The split between the two former Fox News hosts embodies the widening divide in the GOP between the more isolationist elements of the MAGA base that Carlson represents and the more traditional Republican hawks who are more aligned with Levine. And again, it quotes parts of the clip that you already saw there. And again, I really want to focus on that last part. That's not by popular demand, or that's not by popular acclaim. That's like their viewer surveys. Like, we need a lot more Mark Levine, less Jesse Waters, more Mark Levine. What they're doing is what they always do, which is just turning up the propaganda hose to full blast and trying to knock elderly Fox viewers off their feet and make them submit to where you want them to. Because again, remember, Fox wasn't always aligned with Trump. They became aligned with Trump when Trump took the lead in the Republican primaries back in 2015, 2016. Then they went full bore for Trump. Before that, they were in the bag for President Bush and for Mitt Romney, right, who are as antithetical to Trump in terms of policy and character as two people can be. And George Bush was a terrible president, but let's not kid ourselves, right? He was not, a malignant narcissist, insurrectionist, threat to democracy the way that Donald Trump is. Fox they stuck their finger in the air, they noticed where the wind was blowing, and they turned their sails accordingly. So that's an astute and honest observation by Tucker Carlson. That happens to be true. Fox News fired Carlson in the wake of its $787 million settlement with Dominion Voting Systems for pushing debunked 2020 election fraud claims. Carlson has since stirred controversy with his online show, including claiming he was attacked by a demon that left him with physical injuries. So again, I want to be clear here, Tucker Carlson's still quite nuts and an inveterate liar himself, but, broken clocks, right? They're right twice a day. And in this particular case, Tucker Carlson is indeed right about Fox News. And, it's interesting to I'm thinking about Terry Moran. That's the former ABC journalist who was fired by ABC shortly after he publicly criticized Donald Trump. And the Trump administration, the Trump White House publicly called for Moran to be suspended or fired. And Carolyn Levitt said that they actually reached out privately to ABC as well to try to pressure ABC into doing just that. And then they ultimately, first they suspended him and then they declined not to renew his contract. So they effectively fired him. Fox News is the biggest player in mainstream media. Again, they always try to position themselves as the underdog. We're the other guys. The mainstream media. They create part of the entire right-wing grievance project is by pretending that they are weaker than what they are. The right is incredibly powerful. This notion, well, we're popular with Americans, but the institutions all favor the left. That's just bullshit. Okay, let's think about these institutions. The right controls the White House, the Senate, the Supreme Court of the United States, 30 state legislatures. Fox News, the biggest player in mainstream media. They dwarf CNN. They dwarf MSNBC. Then you look at alternate media. They dominate there too. Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, the All In podcast, Megyn Kelly. It doesn't matter. The right has incredible institutional power. But they always like to position themselves, oh, we're the fair and balanced underdogs. Bullshit. You all are by far more popular, but also far more partisan. I mean, again, I use the example CNN, the Clinton News Network. That's what people would always say. Their lead anchor is Jake Tapper, and Jake Tapper has been on a book tour for weeks, if not months, that's critical of the entire book. The premise of the book is criticizing President Biden, a Democrat. Would the lead Fox News, would Brett Baer do that against Donald Trump? Would Dana Perino against Donald Trump? Would any of them? No. The closest you get is Jessica Tarlov, right? And so the reason I think it's interesting is that, what Tucker Carlson says, again, is true, and most people paying attention know it's true, but to hear it from somebody who was employed by Fox to spread that propaganda, it's the call is coming from inside the house. And I don't know to what extent people will take Carlson's complaint seriously. I imagine most people critical of Fox already know what Fox is, right? But it's just further evidence that they are a propaganda arm unlike anything we've ever seen in mainstream media. Again, that last part there, I know I use that a lot, but it's huge. Paying the biggest defamation settlement in American history to a voting systems voting machine company because you signal boosted Trump's lies about the 2020 election. CNN's never done that. CNN's never done anything comparable about that for the Democratic Party, nor is MSNBC of all places. This is a unique sin, a unique journalistic transgression of Fox. And they seem to have learned absolutely nothing. They are doubling down on that shit. The unhinged conspiracy theories, the cultish devotion to Donald Trump, no matter what he says and does. And I think that is a bit of a red line for Tucker Carlson. Because again, Tucker Carlson is insane. Tucker Carlson's a liar. Tucker Carlson is also largely pro-MAGA. But whether it's to appease his base or because he genuinely disagrees with Trump on foreign policy in this particular instance, he's publicly criticizing the Trump administration. And that's something that even the Fox News main reporters very rarely do, and certainly not to this extent. So that dynamic is interesting. But there you go, Fox News being humiliated by the guy who used to be their biggest star by far. And hopefully we'll see more of that, internal MAGA infighting. I'd love to see that. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.